guys, thank you so much for coming to hang out with me today. We're going to talk a little bit about relationships in all types of forms, whether it's family, friends, intimate relationships, casual relationships, acquaintances, coworkers, all that stuff, right? So everybody has them. They can bring some of the most beautiful and joyous times of our lives. They bring love, they bring compassion, they bring companionship. At the same time, they can bring some of the darkest and most difficult times of our lives. They bring betrayal, they bring hurt, they bring trust issues, you name it, you got it, right? So, we're going to examine some of the most important things in relationships. I find that there's two. Doesn't matter what kind of relationship we're talking about here. One being the relationship to and with ourselves. Second being whether this relationship that's external is a healthy or so-called unhealthy relationship. So the love that we hold and carry around for ourselves can play a huge factor in what we not only look for in other people, but what we tend to normalize or find acceptable or say we can look past. Like, for example, when we are going back to past and previous relationships and we're looking at even family relationships, the earliest relationships we can form, we can enable a pattern within ourselves as to what we find normal behavior, where for one person a situation might be completely unacceptable and completely out of the norm because they've never witnessed it, they've never seen it, this doesn't make sense to them. Where for another person, they almost internalize it as, even if it's not acceptable, it's something they can get past because they've dealt with it or at least have seen it or witnessed it in previous or past relationships, and again, whatever form that relationship was in. Like, for example, again, I grew up with a lot of physical punishments, okay? Like, I got my butt handed to me. I love my parents, not talking any issue on that. Just the fact that I was, and still am, somebody who questions a lot by nature. I need to be explained a lot by nature. If I don't necessarily agree, I'm going to let you know I don't agree. And I'm more than open to having conversation or debates about said topic. But I'm not just somebody who says, okay, that's the way it needs to be because you're telling me that's the way it needs to be, if I find fault in your theory, right? So because of that, I was labeled and deemed a very rebellious child, somebody who just didn't like authority. It put a lot of tension on my family relationships and the dynamics that I was being brought up in and exposed to. So when I entered a very toxic and abusive relationship, I didn't look at it the same as someone who might have never had been around something like that before. I was almost able to say, I don't accept this isn't okay, but. And that but is what comes when we know better, but we don't know better. And I think that a lot of it stems from our past and previous relationships. Things become normalized to us that aren't necessarily normal. And we don't know this because our past and previous relationships, and therefore, or in turn, our relationships that we choose in the future or allow ourselves to stay in the future, reinforce the narrative that this is normal behavior. And it's not until we're exposed to something new and different that we can say, wait a minute, no, this doesn't seem like this is the norm for most people, okay? So, on another note, I was brought up with a lot of religious talk. I'm super Christian, so, hey, do you know, but I was told sex before marriage was just wrong. It was something you didn't do, you didn't question it, it was sinful, and it was probably, in my mind then, the worst thing that you could have done. It was horrible. So I'm going to put a little trigger warning here. I'm going to vaguely gloss over some sexual assault, so if this is a sore topic for you, it's not going to be in detail or anything, but if this is something that you find to be a little too much for you, or you don't want to listen to, or don't care to listen to, then this is your cue to exit out for the next minute or so, because we're just going to kind of gloss over really quick, alright? So when I was 13, I was raped. And because of the religious talk I was given, I felt that any virtue I had in me was gone. I was, in a sense, virtueless. And because of that, I went with what I had been told, which was this was further proof that I was flawed, I was wrong, I was this rebellious person who didn't deserve virtue, in a sense. And I get it sounds dramatic and it sounds crazy, but I mean, I was a kid, you know. We all think crazy thoughts when we're young. So this kind of led me into saying, well, you know what? If this is what people think of me, then this is what I'm going to become. It was this self-fulfilling prophecy of, oh, you're a problem, so now I'm going to become a problem. And I was a horrid child. I mean, I was awful. I was having sex. I was doing drugs. I mean, not horrible drugs. I was like smoking weed, but drinking, sneaking out. So when I ended up getting pregnant at 16, I was told that I had to get married. And I didn't look at it like this was something strange or this was an off request. I looked at it like this was going to rectify the situation. I wasn't going to be a teen mom. I was going to be a married mother. And that was going to make all the difference, not only in the way people viewed me, but really in the way I viewed myself. So at 16, I got married. I mean, I got my kids out of it, which is amazing, but I was 16, you know, and I didn't think anything of it. I really didn't. So the reason for this backstory isn't just to tell you guys about me. It's really to show you guys how the past relationships that I had, and really the important ones early on in life, had led me to making choices based on subconscious and even at times very conscious and deliberate ideas of who I was and what was going to be okay and what was going to be understandable. So even if I didn't find these situations to be ideal, I found them to be workable. And that all stemmed from what I had known before. It took me many years to really examine myself, who I was told to be, what I was shown to be okay, and compare that to who I wanted to be and what I truly believed to be what I wanted out of life and what I wanted out of myself and what I wanted out of a partner, instead of what had been there, what I wanted to be there. That is hard work, let me tell you. That's not easy to erase everything and replace it with something new, especially something you have not seen yourself. You're erasing what you've seen and trying to replace it with what you believe, and that's putting an astounding amount of faith within yourself, removing all of that from others and putting it into yourself. The internal relationship that I ended up forming with myself and my own internal being is eventually what led me into being able to decipher what was healthy or unhealthy, what was toxic, and what was adding value to my life. And the adding value is what I looked at as a determining factor in what was healthy and what was unhealthy. What gave me substance? What gave me more in the best way.